Is it on? There we go. All right, everyone, if we can all have a seat, we're going to go ahead and get started with our next panel discussion. And this is a hot and heavy topic right now, student loans.
Student loan forgiveness.
So my name is Sharon. I'm AVP of Financial Outreach at Pelican and also Jumpstart President this year. And so I'm really excited to share this panel with you guys because I really feel like this is such a hot topic. There's so much going on in the world of student loans. What's going to happen with potential student loan forgiveness? Everything's up in the air. How do we guide people who are asking us these questions? Especially if you, A, have student loans yourself, like me, for the rest of my life till I die. Or students that are coming to you and saying, I'm thinking about going to college. I want to go to college. How do I pay for it? What's this going to look like when I get out? Am I going to just be in a ton of debt when I graduate? So let's help find ways to guide them through that experience, okay? So we don't have too much time. We have a short little bit of 30 minutes, but I want to direct you guys, all of the panelists' bios are in your program, so you can get more information there. But I'd like to go ahead and introduce our panelists. At the far end there, we have Ms. Carmen. She's the President and CEO of the Better Business Bureau of South Central Louisiana. And then we have Ms. Deborah. She is the Student Financial Aid Director at the Louisiana Office of Student Financial Assistance, or lovingly known as LOSFA. And then, of course, we have Ms. Leslie Jones, again, Youth Financial Education Analyst from the CFPB. So I'm really excited to hear you guys' perspective on what's going on with student loans and how we can prepare youth of tomorrow, how to manage them, and of course, how people like me can figure out what we do on paying them back. So let's go ahead and get started. What is the difference between private student loans and federal student loans? Anybody want to jump in on that one? And you guys first.
Good afternoon, I'm Deborah. The difference between private and student loans, if your loan is a private loan, that means you have to show creditworthiness in order to qualify for that loan. And most students go to private loans after they've exhausted the amount they can borrow from the federal loans, or if they're in a program like law school, working in medical school, that sort of thing. Interest rates are usually higher, and on private loans, you start most of the times repaying those as soon as you receive them. On the federal student loan side, those are loans that are guaranteed by the federal government. There's no credit check required for the student. The student can borrow a set amount. They're eligible for lower interest rates and things like forbearance and deferments and that sort of thing. There's a cap on how much they can receive either as a dependent or independent student, subsidized and unsubsidized. So one website that I like to refer students, parents, teachers to is studentaid.ed.gov. It answers almost any question you would have on financial aid.
Anybody else want to share? What was the website again?
Studentaid, STUDENTAID.ed.gov. That's the website for the FAFSA, all things student loans, Pell Grants, any kind of federal financial aid.
Thank you so much. Yes, I spent some time there reading about myself, so definitely. All right, so why is the FOSFA so important for applying for student loans? I know that especially, I do believe it's an EBR, and then some of the other parishes, students are required to fill out the FOSFA before they graduate. So can you tell me why that's so important? Okay, there you go.
The free application for federal student aid is a Louisiana requirement for our public high schools, and that was passed by not the legislature, but the Louisiana Department of Education. And it's basically so students don't leave money on the table. Many times students graduate and they don't think they want to go to college and they don't fill out the application. So now it's a requirement. There are some exceptions for students who are not U.S. citizens or students who prove certain things that can be exempt from that. But Louisiana has been a leader in the last couple of years. We're usually neck and neck with Tennessee on first and FAFSA completion. But my director, Dr. Suwan Butte, likes to say, don't leave money on the table. So by filling out the FAFSA, you determine your eligibility for Pell Grants, which is free money, and then you build on that with some other state grants. Also, your students are applying for TOPS. That's what we do mainly. $300 and something million a year in TOPS awards. So if you want to apply for students qualifying for TOPS, they have to fill out the FAFSA. So we encourage FAFSA completion across the board to determine what you're eligible for. Free money first, and then you work your way up from that. So that is required for the federal staff loan, direct loan program.
I do have a follow-up question there. What happens with students who aren't able to get that information from their parents? Because I know part of the FOSTA requires parental income and is it the tax return information? So what do students do if they are not in a situation where their parents are willing or able to give that information to them?
The federal government requires parents to pay for their kids to go to college. Say parents. So you have some students who may live with a grandparent, a cousin, relative. So those situations don't count. They're supposed to put the parents' information if they're a dependent student. So dependent students are those who are under age 24, not married, not in graduate school, not a veteran, don't have a child they provide support for. So in most cases, the majority of the students are dependent students, which means they're required to provide their parents' information on the FAFSA. If students cannot provide that information, it's really a disadvantage to the student, because if the parent just says, no, I'm not giving it to you, the student can still apply on the FAFSA, but they would only be eligible for unsubsidized loans, even though they may qualify for a Pell Grant. You know, parents will say, I don't want the government getting my information. Guess what? They already have it. It's everywhere. You know, artificial intelligence, I think sometimes I just say something and then I look at my phone and that same thing is like it heard me scrolling on my timeline. So the federal government has everything they need. But if parents decide they don't want to, so the student can't go to a college and say, my parent won't give it to me. Because the rule says that you just will only get unsubsidized loans. Now, there are extenuating circumstances. If the student is in foster care, there's another grant for that, or the student's parents are mentally incapacitated, or they're incarcerated or deceased, then that's a different story. They may qualify as an independent student. And then they can make an appointment with the college financial aid office to ask for a professional judgment. And that would show that, you know, because sometimes when the parents is not giving it to you, but they're still claiming that child in the tax return. Because the student may work, and you know, now students are working, they're earning $8,000, $9,000, $10,000, then if they're making TikTok videos, they're earning a lot of money. And so they can show that they can support themselves, but if the parent is still claiming them, that student can't be independent. So it gets sticky, and I can answer questions later, but if the parents just refuse flat out and the kid is living with the parent, the student can apply, but they would only get unsubsidized loans, which is not the best loan to get.
That's great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. So let's talk a little bit about loan repayments, because that's the sad part of student loans for all of us on our hearts. Having to repay it, right? I firmly believe we should repay our debt. I just wish it wasn't so much. So let me ask some questions about that. So Ms. Leslie, could you talk to us a little bit about how the grace period for student loans work and when students should prepare to pay back?
The grace period. It's never long enough. I want to start with that. The grace period is definitely not long enough. One of the things that I recommend, CFPB just recently put out a page on their website that is all about repayment, and there's like 4 major questions, and you answer them according to whether you're getting ready to start to repay, whether you're in repayment, those kind of things. And you're able to go through and see where you should go. And a lot of times we're sending you to the Department of Education's website and things like that, but at least it answers a lot of your questions and gets you started. So I say go into your internet browser, type in CFPB space repay student loan, and you will get a wealth of information, but you'll get that click through that will get you to the information that you need for your circumstance, because depending on whether you're all federal loans or whether you're also private loans, you've got different, you know, that flow chart thing that you've got to follow, you've got different paths, and so you'll want to be able to find your customized solution. Okay?
Awesome, thank you. I think that'll be really helpful. So Carmen, I believe I have a really good question for you with the Better Business Bureau. Can you talk to me about what kind of scams we're seeing when it comes to student loan forgiveness or student loan repayment or consolidation, things like that?
I get the fun part. Yeah, I don't have any facts or anything like that as far as what they're talking about, but the Better Business Bureau, first of all, most people think we're the credit bureau. Let me just put that out there. So they call us, and we have a rule in our office, which I shared with these ladies, is if we don't have the answer, we better find out. We're not allowed to tell anybody we don't know. And so the scams that we get the most calls on, especially right now, because we know that the president has indicated that he's going to do the loan forgiveness. Yeah, he's
cancellation.
anytime, and this is the truth for anything, anytime something's in the news where everybody hears about it, everybody knows about it. I mean, most of us have kids that, or students or whatever, that owe money. So it's going to catch their attention, and it kind of feels like a lifeline to them. And of course, the president and his people have been out there talking about it. So it doesn't sound unreasonable that you're going to get a call that says, this is what you need to do to pay this grant off or to get the free grant. I love that. It's a free grant, and all you have to do is give your financial information and maybe pay $1,000. Or another thing that they do is they'll send you a check. And the check it looks legitimate. People call us all the time, they'll say, yeah, but it's got a bank account, it's got all this information on there. What you have to understand is that these scammers are very intelligent. They watch the news, they have the internet, they can make the things that they're making look legitimate. And what your responsibility as a consumer is to realize that if it sounds too good to be true, it generally is. If you have to do something to get it, that's a warning sign. They use the same scenario for different things, whether it's a grant or Social Security or whatever the case may be. And the newest thing, and I've been doing this for 40 years, so I've seen every step that they can go to. When I first started, they would ask you to send money up front, okay? Now what they're doing is they're telling you to get the grant, that all you have to do is go to Walmart or CVS and buy a money pack card, right? Basically, essentially just a gift card you put money on, and then all you have to do to validate it is give them the numbers on the back of the card. Yeah, you shake your head. You would be surprised how many people have lost $10,000, $250,000, and then they call us. So we see these things all the time, but if it's in the news, no matter what it is, and student forgiveness is right now a big hot topic, scammers are going to look at that and they're going to target you. Used to be seniors, used to be a target for all these scams, but think about this. If you don't have a student loan, then you're not going to be a target, right? But if you have a student loan, or your child has a student loan, or whoever, those are targets, and how many people exist in that area? So that their target is larger, and they're just going to contact people one after another. The other thing they do is they build a relationship with you. They make you feel like, you know, they're in it to help you, to assist you, and they want to help you. You've done all this work, and they want to help you get out of debt. It's unfortunate, but these people are going to take you as long as you allow them to. And so the main thing is, if it sounds too good to be true, if you have to put out money up front, remember, a grant is free. You don't, and to apply for a grant, it's not easy. Just like we were talking about FAFSA. How many of you have filled out that application? Yeah, exactly. We had 3 kids, one went to LSU. And the thing is that paperwork is horrible. So it's, no offense, but it is. And it has to, it should be. I mean, it should be. I mean, you don't want anything that's going to be valid to be easy, then it sounds too good to be true. But people think that all they have to do is give money and they'll get a grant. And that's the biggest scam that we're getting right now. You'll get an email, you'll get a text, you'll get a call, and most of the people that are scamming you, unfortunately, are either in India or Jamaica. Right now, that's what we're seeing. Yeah, it's unfortunate. But and don't believe in caller ID. You can have all the laws you want, and they're only as good as they're enforceable. And they can manipulate the phone system and make it. They can actually say it's from the Department of Education or whatever, and you will believe it, or the Social Security or the federal government. We get calls all the time where companies will call us and say, "Hey, you just called us? No, this is the Better Business Bureau. I know your number came up on our caller ID." It's easy. They use names and numbers that are familiar to people.
Oh, excellent.
Just
to ease your fears about the FAFSA.
I'm sorry. It's still in my mind.
The Department of Education is doing FAFSA simplification, so for the 24-25 FAFSA, it's gonna be probably less than 50 questions. They're gonna
That's
get
amazing.
the income data retrieval tool for all students directly, that walk in with that. And then they're gonna be changing the EFC to something called SAI, Student Aid Index. So the FAFSA is getting simpler and shorter and easier to process.
He's so popular today. That's such great information, though. I think that a lot of us, a lot of people, especially when you're in a very difficult financial situation, you're just really grasping for something that can help. And so a lot of times when someone calls and, oh, here, I've got all your information, we're ready to do your loan forgiveness. If you're not up with what's on the news and how this is not moving through yet and everything's on hold and now it's going to the Supreme Court. So like if you don't know those things, you might be like, oh good, it's my turn now, time to do my thing, right? And so it's very difficult, especially like I said, when you're in a very difficult financial situation to say, oh no, like it might not be legitimate. So as we're talking about this loan forgiveness, who can give us a little bit deeper information on Biden's student loan forgiveness process? And we're just looking for maybe some answers about who would qualify. I know that there's been a lot of that in the news, but what does it really look like and who's going to be able to take advantage of it if it does work? Different paths, I guess.
I think I want to offer, because it's been stopped dead in its tracks, and what comes out of it might be completely different, not, be substantially changed. I don't know that you want to, I hate to give you advice, tell you, and then have it be completely different when it restarts, so that's where I'm.
Okay, I see.
Do you?
Yeah. Does everybody kind of feel that way? Did you have some?
Just something I heard in the news yesterday, if some people applied before the court stopped it, so those people are gonna stay in the pipeline, but no one can apply right now. And one thing I did hear was that if you say you owe $30,000 and you expect to get $20,000 forgiven, $10,000 plus $10,000 because you had a Pell Grant. When the pause ends, right now the current student loan pause is set in December. So January, nothing happens, you'll start making repayments on your existing loans. So even if you get $20,000 forgiven, you still owe $10,000, however much you borrowed above that hasn't been repaid. So just pay attention to that and keep up with what's going on in the schools.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Is you're definitely going to have to pay something back, right? And so you need to start making those payments when they are no longer paused to ensure that you keep a good credit score and things like that. We had a question in the back.
Yeah, does anyone on the panel know anything about, I'm gonna call it loan forgiveness, that might not be the correct term, but, yes, the public service.
Oh, the public service.
Yeah.
Okay, so the public service, now that was a different program, right? Who wants to give us some information on the differences for that?
All right, that program, did anybody take advantage of the waiver that they were allowing for the last year? You did? So you did your consolidation, of loans? Oh, it didn't count?
But I did it, they just gave me something that can't come back that I didn't qualify.
Oh,
They said I didn't qualify.
I'm sorry, what about, were you able to consolidate? And so were you able to apply it? Wonderful. So you've got 10 years of federal service, you need to pay back you're paying back your loan, 120 payments, I believe. And what will end up happening is after you've made all of those payments for that excruciatingly long period of time, then you're able to apply for a waiver for your remaining balance. And so it is, and if you've been able to do the income-based repayment up until then, you've hopefully been making a lower payment than you could have. So the system had a lot of flaws in it when it got created and started, and there was not a lot of clarity behind it. I think the new version of it is probably more clear, and I'm hoping that you're still able to be further ahead than you were and get to that clearance time earlier than you were before. Is there anybody else that's trying to get it by working towards it? Anybody else working towards public service loan forgiveness? Okay, this room is not working towards that.
Okay, yes.
Same thing with teachers?
Yeah, that's teachers are definitely, yeah.
That's a separate program too, teacher loan forgiveness. You can
Oh,
qualify
yes,
for
exactly.
both. So one thing to say with the public loan forgiveness too is, I think people are having issues with getting it certified. So if you're working toward that at the end of each 12-month period, go to your system's HR and get the documentation that says, I have worked 12 months in the qualifying profession, or local, state, nonprofit, that kind of thing. So when you get ready to apply, you're not going back, maybe you changed school districts 3-4 years ago, then you kind of go back to these different places to get your documentation. So each time you complete 12 months, get that and put it in your file. But there is a separate program for teacher loan forgiveness. And with that one, you can get $5,000 or $17,500.
That's a Louisiana program, right?
That's federal. Teacher loan forgiveness. So $5,000 if you work 5 years as a full-time certified teacher, you can get $5,000. If you're in special ed or secondary math or science, you can get up to $17,500 forgiven. So all that's on the student aid.ed.gov site. So you could qualify for the BIDES program that goes through public service forgiveness, and then the teacher amount also. Because the teacher amount is only 5 years of working consecutively. 5 consecutive years teaching in one of those areas. So you can get that first while you're working on your public service loan forgiveness also.
Awesome. That was really helpful. All right, so let's see. We can take probably about one maybe question from the audience, because we're supposed to wrap up in about 2 or 3 minutes for this section. Yes, ma'am.
All right, you mentioned the teacher loan forgiveness and the qualifications for that. But however, at one point, they used to say if you had worked at high-risk, high-end school, is that still into effect?
A low-income school does qualify.
Okay, so she had asked if you work at a high-risk or low-income school, does that qualify? And the answer was yes. Okay. Any other quick questions before we move on? All right. So thank you guys so much for sharing your information on student loan forgiveness. And I'm sure that these ladies will answer any questions that you have afterwards. It looks like right now we've got our next panel discussion on insurance. So give us just a couple minutes and we're going to go ahead and get it set up for that one, okay?
Do you want to mention the other room?
Oh, yes, yes. So don't forget that we have our next break coming up at 3 p.m. after this panel, and we do have our photo booth set up so that you can take pictures, post on your social media, make everybody jealous that you were here today, have an awesome, fun day doing professional development with fun jumpstart people, right? So we're going to go ahead and switch to our next panel discussion right now.